The Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of the biggest franchises in all of cinema. Ever since Marvel kickstarted a massive cinematic universe with Iron Man in 2008, their movies have made billions of dollars and smashed all sorts of box office records. But after Avengers Endgame in 2019, it was hard to imagine where they'd go from there, even if it was the highest grossing movie of all time for about a year. I mean, Far From Home kinda gave us an idea of what to expect from the post-Endgame MCU, but the money train's gotta keep flowing somehow, so here we are now with the multiverse saga. We're only almost one phase through at the moment, with this new saga expected to run until 2026? I'll be an adult by then! But still, we've gotten through almost the entirety of Phase 4, with all that remains being Black Panther Wakanda Forever and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And so, I've decided to go on back and do some retrospective on Phase 4 up to this point, and why, for the most part, it's been a complete mess. Let's start at the beginning with WandaVision. I'm probably gonna get some hate for saying this, but I really liked this show. Of course, it's definitely creative with its sitcom parodies in the earlier episodes, and the costume design is absolutely phenomenal, but going beyond that, again, I might get some hate for this, but I liked Wanda's arc here. Now, yes, some might see it as character assassination, and I can totally understand that, but I get what they were trying to do with her. Since she's shown to have had a really bad life, it makes sense that she'd want to try and desperately hold on to the good things in it, even if she ends up hurting other people. Was she in the wrong? Definitely, and the show makes that abundantly clear. But I can still see why her mental state deteriorated to that level, and Elizabeth Olsen's performance was definitely a highlight. Were there some things the show could have done better? Yes. The finale was kind of underwhelming, and the pacing in the episodes that weren't inside of the Hex wasn't very good. But for what it was, I still enjoyed WandaVision, even if most others did not. Next up, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This show seemed to be setting the groundwork for how the characters within the MCU have adjusted following the blip. I did enjoy the chemistry between the two main actors, and there were definitely some good concepts, especially with its social commentary on domestic terrorism, but overall, it was just a very bad and forgettable show with two really bad villains and an underwhelming finale. While some of the other MCU projects teased the idea of the multiverse, Loki was what set up its major significance throughout the rest of this saga, and it didn't do a very good job at it. I loved Tom Hiddleston here since I already loved Loki and the other MCU movies he was in. The score was mesmerizing, and the locations explored in the show were pretty cool, but everything else was just kinda not good. I hated the whole lack of free will thing that ends up retconning a good majority of the MCU. The concept felt very wasted for most of the show, and the finale was a mess. A very disappointing show overall. Finally, now we're on to the movies, and Black Widow was definitely not a good way to start. The best way to describe it is that it's too little too late. Natasha had already died in Endgame, so I didn't see the point in giving her this whole backstory movie other than to set up her bland sister as a character in the Thunderbolts movie. And what we did get just didn't feel worth the wait for the most iconic female character in Marvel history, with bad acting and dialogue, bad pacing, and some especially bad VFX. And the bad content just keeps on coming, because now we're on to What If. What a great way to screw up such a cool concept. This show could have been one of the highlights of Phase 4, not only because it's taking a new direction for the franchise by being animated, and the animation is really good, but the whole idea of this alternate history-based story could have worked really well in setting up the multiverse. Instead, what we got was a forgettable show with some of the most asinine concepts imaginable, like a zombie apocalypse and Killmonger killing Iron Man. Another massive letdown from Phase 4, so I guess the only way left to go is up, right? Thank God. Now we're on to one of the few good Phase 4 projects with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I mean, it ain't anything spectacular, but considering the other stuff we got in Phase 4 so far, it was quite a breath of fresh air. It also stands out from most of the MCU in terms of its style, since not only is it a martial arts film, but its director Destin Daniel Cretton implemented a similar character-focused drama tone present in his other films, especially with this one having its main theme centered around dealing with the death of a loved one. And while the writing, pacing, and some of the character development could have used some fine-tuning, Shang-Chi was still an enjoyable movie with some incredible visuals to boot. But of course, everything was ruined when Eternals came along. Now, at this point in the video, I guess it's about time that I bring up something I've frequently mentioned in my other Marvel-related videos: the studio's fetish for indie directors. According to Kevin Feige, the main reason why he hires so many inexperienced directors, beyond them being cheap, is because of their raw creativity, which is ironic given how much executive meddling goes on behind the scenes at Disney. And while it's hard for me to pinpoint the unique style of someone like Shane Black or Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, I can definitely see the creativity of some of these other directors in their MCU projects, and how sometimes it can lead to them gaining more notoriety as a filmmaker later down the road. With that said, this brings us to Chloe Zhao, another director with a relatively limited filmography whose only other notable work prior was with Nomadland. It's a great movie, sure, but I don't think her slow burn drama style of filmmaking really worked for this epic superhero space opera. As such, Eternals ends up feeling like a tonally disjointed mess with some awful pacing and so many plot holes that the script might as well have been called Camp Green Lake. Not to mention that the villain, Icarus, is not only the worst villain in the entire MCU, but one of the worst twist villains in any movie I've ever seen. Not sure why 2021 was the year of terrible live-action twist villains, but to get back on track now, while Eternals was slightly better than Captain Mary Sue thanks to having some phenomenal visuals and cinematography, it was definitely the worst movie to come out of Phase 4, as well as one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. At least it's still better than She-Hulk, but we'll get there when we get there. Finally, another breather from terrible Phase 4 content with Hawkeye. Keeping with the trend of uniqueness in this phase, this is a full-fledged Christmas series. I mean, there have been Christmas movies for a long time now, and Christmas specials and TV shows are nothing new, so to see this one going the extra mile and being a Christmas-based show is pretty interesting. But don't worry, it's sort of similar to something like Klaus, where despite being holiday-themed, you can watch it and enjoy it at basically any time in the year. Back on track now, I will admit that the show is relatively low stakes compared to some of the other Marvel content we've received recently. The humor was very hit or miss, and there were some pretty stupid writing choices, but it's a nice and cozy show overall, and I enjoyed the chemistry between Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld. And last but certainly not least for this video, Spider-Man No Way Home. After a whole year of mostly low quality content from Marvel, to say that No Way Home was a breath of fresh air would be quite an understatement. I've talked about it before in a full review and even ranked it as my #1 favorite movie of 2021, but I'll do my best to explain why I loved this movie without sounding like a broken record. So when it comes to nostalgia-heavy movies, while most of them just feel like they're using their references to distract the viewer from more glaring problems, No Way Home weaves the elements of the Sam Raimi and Mark Webb Spider-Man movies into the script flawlessly and without coming across as condescending. It's definitely great to see the old villains back, and the references were pretty fun. Green Goblin is easily one of the best villains in the MCU, and while I and basically everyone knew Toby and Andrew would show up, seeing them was still a blast. But putting aside all those nostalgia-based elements, No Way Home was still great. First off, yeah, I know a lot of people have criticized its VFX, and while I do think that the blue screen in the mirror dimension fight was kinda off, the movie still looked really good in my eyes. Not only that, but the cinematography was excellent, the direction and pacing were great, where the jokes were able to balance well with the crushing emotional moments without coming across as feeling like mood whiplash, and the arc Tom Holland's Peter got was not only great, but tragic at the same time. But a good kind of tragic. You know, the kind that's sad, but still nice to see him do something selfless in order to save those around him. So yeah, even after all this time, No Way Home still stands as the magnum opus of Phase 4 and probably even the MCU as a whole. And I wish I could keep going, but I don't want to make this video too long, so you'll have to wait for part 2, coming as soon as I can finish editing it. But thanks for watching this part in the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!